I want to welcome everybody to the second episode of the 3 Esoterics. That's at the number 3 Esoterics, as you could read it on the screen by producer girlfriend. She put it up there very nicely. And here with us is Louis Fine, or AKA, as his brother texted a picture of him yesterday, producer girlfriend. And
here I am.
The caption says, "Am I the only one seeing it?" And
Going on for a while.
You know, I like how your brother is comparing you to the later stage Travolta. You
Yeah.
know, to the effeminate Travolta. He didn't send us a picture from Saturday Night Fever and say, "Are you guys seeing this?"
Well, I don't know what's to be said about a man in a white polyester suit with a passion for disco. I think this Travolta is more masculine compared to that one.
This is the not straight Travolta.
Right. And we go back to the pitch meeting where we say it opens with him buying a shirt on layaway, a polyester shirt on layaway, and holding a can of paint.
Yeah.
With 2 slices of pizza that he folds on that oil-stained paper plate as he makes his way down the streets of Bensonhurst.
But on a side note, I also learned that you have a brother.
Right.
Which you know, because one of the things I realized, Ben, you included, we all know very little about each other. Ben and I maybe met 3 months ago at this point.
Yeah.
We've spoken for a few years before that. And Louis, I've known
just a moment. Can we? Because it's a kudos to I don't know, whatever AT&T time, whatever entity is now, whatever that entity is operating under its name, because Ben is coming to us from a trailer he's squatting in Zabriskie Point in Death Valley. So picture's great, sound is great. So I don't know how you're getting any Wi-Fi there, but kudos for taking over that abandoned utopian town founded by the Manson family.
Is it me, or did Lewis's beard grow another inch since yesterday?
I think it's managed to grow another inch since yesterday. I don't even think it's a beard, to be honest with you. I think he bought a bank robbery kit. But you know, and I realize this is where, you know, everybody. Then I know, Louis, you've never seen the show, but Ben, you've seen the show The Office, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, most of the world has seen it. It's one of Netflix's highest streaming show. But one of the things that you notice about The Office is, or any office, is you really don't know people. You know, you know what you want them to know about you at work, but their personal lives, unless it's in work, you don't really know about their sisters, their brothers, their likes, their dislikes.
That's true. And for good reason.
For good reason, yeah. But one of the cool things about this time, we won't mention what's going on in the world, is that we actually could get to know people at a personal level. We might not want to.
Well, right. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. No, I would, since everybody's, well, people who are working from home, there's necessarily going to be a blurring of those lines, and so it's no longer, work is no longer just work. I've worked from home forever. Well,
what's the deal with the puppet strings hanging from the top left knob of that hollowed out piece of furniture? It's like the Anthony Hopkins character in that. What was that movie where he plays a puppeteer? Anthony Hopkins plays a puppeteer.
Oh,
because that's who you are right now.
Yeah.
Louis, here's the rule. When you go esoteric, you have to.
Well, he knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it was
like Shadow or something.
No. Now I've got to look it up.
You look it up.
I feel terrible about this.
And by the way,
you bought that at an auction.
Louis, wasn't he in one of the Entebbe movies?
Anthony Hopkins?
Yeah.
No.
Are you sure he didn't play the prime minister?
If he did, it would have been in that Richard Dreyfuss abortion, but I'll check it out right now.
By the way, producer girlfriend is a big Richard Dreyfuss fan. And we wanted to speak about actors that sort of, you know, were rising stars.
Magic.
Magic, there you go.
Thank you, guys. What year was it?
1978.
Yeah.
And he played a puppeteer?
Uh, something like
Holy
that.
cow, Judah. Anthony Hopkins played Rabin.
Yeah.
I didn't see that, but I didn't see that one because, and it's got Kirk Douglas and Burt Lancaster.
Who is he going to play? Arafat?
He could. Never. I just, to me, it's the Yaphet Kotto version that matters.
So you're a big Live and Let Die fan.
No, I mean, the first time I saw it, more than the toy, it begs the question, how? I don't know how, like, Cubby Broccoli didn't make his way to Pinewood Studios every day through a group, hundreds of protesters that had been flown from the States to London on behalf of the NAACP, SNCC, and CORE, just demanding that there be script changes and the
Script changes. I mean, a movie change. They needed to literally shut down that movie.
Yeah, this is a blaxploitation film written and directed by white people that did not age well.
By the way, far worse was Moonraker. By the way, that might be
Moonraker is great. His name's Jaws. He kills people.
Speaking of which, who's your favorite Bond?
Well, I could say that as a one-off, nobody's done it better than Lazenby.
Lazenby.
You know, it's funny. I have Lazenby too, and producer ex-girlfriend, producer girlfriend.
Whoa.
Uh-oh.
No, it's because I was reading producer girlfriend, and then it says E and producer girlfriend, and hers is Lazenby too, right?
Yeah, I a while ago when I used to write for a newspaper, I actually wrote an article on all of the Bonds, and I rated it from a woman's perspective. This was a long time ago, so I can't really remember exactly what I had written about, but it was from a women's perspective on each of the Bonds. And I personally really loved Lazenby. I mean, I love Daniel Craig, but I think Daniel Craig is a very different Bond than the rest of them.
Producer girlfriend, can you do us a favor? Because I want everybody to see this. I want the 7 people that will see this show to see this. Is there a way for you to put up the Pierce Brosnan Diet Coke commercial on the screen? It's on YouTube.
Not right now.
We'll have to wait a little bit. But getting
But
back,
you can do this. You can do that at some point during the broadcast.
just so you know, he was the only Bond movie that Bond ever got married, and his wife died.
And it's also got a great Blofeld.
I mean, it's got Telly Savalas. I mean, you know.
And probably John Barry's best soundtrack. Best.
So here's my question, guys. So we're all 80s people, and if you looked at like from 1981 to 1986, you would have looked at a certain amount of movies and said, Mickey Rourke at a certain point will win an Oscar. There's a certain amount of actors that just killed their careers. Treat Williams. Am I alone?
I never thought of Treat Williams as Oscar worthy.
Eric Roberts was nominated for an Oscar.
Right, but that doesn't mean anything. Tommy Lee Jones has an Oscar for The Fugitive.
No, but he's a good actor.
Right, but he beat out Ray Fiennes in Schindler's List.
Ask who her favorite actor is.
Ray Fiennes?
Who?
I love Ray Fiennes.
Ray Fiennes.
And I got pneumonia after I met him because I waited over 3 hours in sleet to see him in a play in London when I went to school. And the pneumonia was worth it. I'm going to be honest, because he was fantastic.
We're gonna have to edit this part, you know.
That's what I have to compete with. And Ray Fiennes. That's my I'm sort of screwed. But one of the things I've noticed, and I was talking to Lewis about this the other day, is that, and I've noticed this for a while, I'm a binge watcher, right? So I'll binge 5 seasons, 6 seasons of a show, right? And I think there's an issue when you binge so much of a show all at once.
In a day?
No, 3 days, let's say. I've literally watched 70 episodes in 4 nights sometimes.
He watched 13 episodes in one night, like within the last few days. He woke up and he's like,
night. Saturday
Yeah.
night, I watched Fauda. And
Which I've since found out I did watch.
yeah, that's how much you enjoyed it, was that
Yeah.
you stopped watching it.
Yeah.
And I binge watched it in 13 hours. Now, the thing is, I'm not saying when you binge watch a season, that's different, but there are certain shows that are binge watchable that have been on for 10 years.
So when you say you binge watched it for 13 hours, was this like diapers and just crystal meth?
It's ginger ale diet.
That ginger ale, my vape.
And you want to talk about Travolta and femininity? You're drinking diet ginger ale, what? Canada Dry?
That's right, Canada Dry Diet Ginger Ale, and they make it now with ginger. Quite good.
Yeah.
It's diet.
Diet.
I'm not the only one. I've noticed this, by the way. I never see anybody taking it, but it's always being. You ever notice that with certain foods? Certain foods you see everybody take. You see everybody take cream cheese off the shelf, right? I go to Ralph's. I want to get apple turnovers. I get apple turnovers. I've never seen.
Where is Ralph's? Because I'm not in the same state.
It's Kroger's.
I don't know.
I know you're not in the same state, but it's Kroger's. You who sits on a baby mattress.
Do you remember the days when it was acceptable to commit child abuse in the aisle of either a supermarket or a Kmart or a toy store? And that was a sign of good parenting. There'd be a kid whining for a toy. And then you just see it was moving so fast, it was blurry. The hand of the parent across the face of the child. And that was a sign of good parenting. Other parents that saw it were silently applauding. And now that's reason to lose custody and go to jail.
So here's a good question. Since you're both parents, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
If that weren't the rule, would you abide by it?
Beat my kid in the aisle for asking for a toy?
Give a bit of a spank. Listen, when I was a kid in Temple, if I misbehaved, everybody in the Temple saw my consequences.
See, that's the difference. Because if I were in your shoes, with the payas and the hat and everything else,
that's what
I would, because I saw, and Robbie Benson did a great job playing you. I'm much more of a psychological terrorist. I would find ways to wage psychological war against that person for the duration of the school year. So for the next 7 months, I would just say, look, I can withstand the pain, but I'm going to make you suffer too.
You still didn't answer my question.
Would I beat my kid
would you
in aisle 7?
In aisle 6, you misbehave. If Ben,
I beat somebody else's kid. There's a bunch of kids I want to beat.
See, that shows you the generational. That's. I agree with you. You want to beat the parents and the.
Oh, I want to beat the kids. Yeah. And by the way, if you don't hate at least one of your kids' friends, there's something wrong with you.
Well, I don't have any. I don't have.
It doesn't matter if you have friends who have kids. If you don't hate at least one of their friends, one of your friends' kids' friends, there's something wrong with you.
There's a lot of little jerks out there. That's for sure.
Yeah, but then there are just the ones that haven't done anything wrong, but you still should hate them.
Explain.
It's just like the kid looks like a rat. Looks like a rat. He hasn't done anything wrong, but he looks like a rat.
And just for the record, even though Lewis does look a bit like an effeminate John Travolta at this point, he has managed to have one of the cutest kids you'll ever see in your life.
It's true.
It's a freak of genetic engineering.
I have no idea about her behavior, but as far as
very good, incredible.
Yeah,
incredible.
And so now I'm staring more at Ben's office, trying to get to know him, and I've noticed the more Marvel characters since the other day.
Yeah.
I've noticed the Panama Jack hats.
Wait, but let's go. Okay, but let's go back to Ben because he still has his getaway bag. But to the right of the getaway bag is some other thing with stickers that, from my perspective, and I don't have my glasses on, look like the Shepard Fairey version of Mao.
It's
see that bag with those two stick right there. Well, they can't see that I'm pointing.
It's a shredder. And it's got a couple of stickers on it.
No, not that. You're looking at your getaway bag in the background.
Yeah, I'm looking. It's right.
Yeah, those two stickers.
Right.
Who are they of?
One is Abraham Lincoln, and then the other one is. Hold on.
Good job. This works.
Yeah, I think those glasses. Whoever gave you those glasses, they did a good job.
Hey, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good to see Ben got dressed up for the occasion.
Yeah.
By the way, okay, I just got to say something. Get all seriousness aside, and I don't want to talk about it, but I mean, we all watch TV, right? You guys have been watching live TV, and you see all these ads about the humanity of the amazing companies out there. Like, we should thank Heinz for still making ketchup.
Right.
And is there? It's almost like watching TV right now is a constant stream of like that Sarah McLachlan ad for the dogs.
Oh my God.
And it's like do they not realize people just want to be entertained? We do not.
I don't watch commercial television, so I'm free of all this.
But Ben does, right?
It's by the way, the other sticker is Mr. Poopy Butthole from Rick and Morty.
But Ben, have you noticed that these extremely sentimental commercials that just like, we're a credit card company, but we care.
We're all in this together, even though we're not.
Together, right. That's exactly right.
Right.
And it's like, I just find it to be so annoying.
Cloying, mawkish, irritating.
I do. So I want to get back into this debate the other night. So we all go through YouTube portals. We all go through Wikipedia portals, right? And I know a lot of people don't admit that they do this, but Wikipedia could be quite addictive. You click on one thing, it takes you to the next thing, it takes you to the next thing, it takes you to the next thing, right? Same thing with YouTube.
Right.
So the other night, through my YouTube porthole, my girlfriend and I got into a discussion between Billy Joel, Elton John, who's better? We all agree.
Right, Billy Joel.
Billy Joel.
Elton John.
Why? What's the case? What's the argument? Because it seems to me that it requires no argument to demonstrate the superiority of Billy Joel.
Together.
Yeah.
Okay, so after Judah and I had this discussion, which, let me paint a picture for you, went on for probably a good hour, and our two dogs who were sitting on the couch with us were trying to sleep. The one kept kicking me to like, shut up, right? Because we were getting so heated over this. Wow. I grew up in Chicago. I asked my cousin, who's my best friend, her thoughts on this. She also said Elton John. And for the two of us, born and raised in Chicago, Billy Joel is very New York East Coast. So for us, it wasn't, even though he's an American, it's not familiar. We grew up, and I'm not saying that Elton John is familiar because he's British and there's a certain amount of reserve with his performance. That's how we grew up.
There is no reserve with a man in rhinestones and high heels, dressed as a Los Angeles Dodger, who is just jumping out of cakes in a pre-AIDS flu-like, quote-unquote, grid pandemic, which he escaped, thankfully. And at the same time, reassuring fans that my girlfriend loves my work. There was no girlfriend, of course.
But here's the thing, by the way, we all write, but so does the producer girlfriend. But the thing is, I think women like music more than they do lyrics.
I feel like I can dance a lot more to Elton John songs than I can to Billy Joel songs.
Well, who's dancing to?
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Other than 76-year-old women and 47-year-old gay men. Who else is dancing?
I could see this as like maybe musical chairs at a retirement home.
But that's exactly right. But Ben, seriously, that's
Benny.
To
Ozzy, you're an Ozzy fan, right? You
Sure.
could probably sing. His lyrics mean more to you than the.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. The lyrics are often in metal songs are often terrible. Like, Actually, even worse than Ozzy or Ronnie James Dio's lyrics. Like it's like I just think it was like, what's the most preposterous sort of cliched supernatural yakety yak I can make rhyme, and then we'll put some guitars behind it. I mean, it's what it's been 31 years, I guess, since, or almost 40 years since Heaven and Hell came out. And I still don't understand why. Though I readily acknowledge that I am a fool, I do not understand why I've got to bleed for the dancer. That has never made any sense to me.
Can I do a timeout for a very quick moment?
Yeah,
you
sure.
guys can keep talking. I have to just do some very brief business, and I'll be back in about 45 seconds.
Well,
So you guys can keep talking.
Yeah,
Great.
we will. So
Okay.
Ben, you dispelled that myth. So it's not just it's just that we think Elton John is just terrible.
I think pound for pound, Billy Joel is a better musician. He's just a better musician, better composer and better writer.
Well, that was part of our discussion. Was Judah said Billy Joel is a writer where Elton John doesn't write his own lyrics.
I think that makes a difference, don't you? Or no? I guess not.
I think that when you start to add all those qualifiers, it becomes a bigger discussion.
Well, I used it just
like the question that he originally asked me was, who do you think is better, Elton John or Billy Joel? And my head goes Elton John. It didn't qualify as who actually writes their songs, who's actually the better piano player. It was just, in my opinion, Elton John is better than Billy Joel. He's got a bigger worldwide presence. And I think maybe that's why, because we couldn't identify with him growing up in Chicago, identifying with Billy Joel, I went more with the worldwide presence of Elton John, as opposed to someone who has a very specific identity with a region of our country, if that makes sense.
Well, and then it may actually be a generational thing more than a geographical thing, because I was born and raised in California. And I think that my recollection, I remember a lot of, I remember Elton John when he had the big sunglasses and things.
right. She's 11 years younger.
Yeah, so I think coming of age in the 80s.
Yeah.
Which was really Billy Joel's heyday, although
late 70s,
but he had a string of hits in the
Strangers, and
80s.
The Stranger is a great song, and a great song, which is an homage, in my opinion, to Steely Dan, which I could talk about for years, and that's the only group I could really talk about, is Zanzibar. There's not a Zanzibar.
It's funny. Can I tell you something? There was a coffee shop in San Diego, and it was called Zanzibar, and I used to go there specifically because of that song.
Did they play it?
We're talking about a song that most Billy Joel fans don't even know about.
Right.
I heard him perform it live. Did they ever play this song at your coffee bar?
No. But
like it was worth it.
But by the way, getting back to Ben's point, I think that's actually a great point. We peaked with Billy Joel in the 80s, right? He didn't stay as relevant as Elton John did. Elton John did the Lion King. He did more soundtrack stuff. Then when Princess Diana died, he got even more relevant.
I can't think of an Elton John music video, but I can recall a bunch of Billy Joel music videos.
Sure.
I could think. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I can't. Because he doesn't translate to music video.
But think of the music videos that were highlights of Billy Joel's career for the longest time. Uptown Girl. I'm not saying these are good songs, but
We Didn't Start
they
the
were good
Fire.
videos.
Allentown.
Allentown.
Good Night Saigon.
Yep.
Well, I
And,
think you guys are right that he started in a time where MTV was
Keeping the Faith.
Yeah, that was the MTV that we all grew up with. It's not that what it is now. Yeah.
No, but I think people don't. I always try to say this, like with music and age, we're all in a 5-year difference, the three of us, and producer girlfriend is 7 years, let's say, younger than the youngest person here, right? in music, that's a huge difference, right? If you were 14 or 15 in 1991, the odds are you were going to be a bigger grunge fan than you were of 80s hair or 80s rock bands,
Right.
because they had become so out of style at that point.
Right.
You know, but if you still, I mean, I one time went to a Poison show in 2001. I'm admitting that out loud. There were 20,000 people still there at that show that looked like they hadn't changed at all. I mean, you know, they were wearing the same outfit they were 20 years before.
Sure.
So, but Elton John did stay more relevant than Billy Joel.
Because Billy Joel
But
stopped.
remember, they toured together also.
Yeah, but it's more than that, because Elton John uses current day media to propel him into remaining relevant. He wasn't relevant music-wise in the late 80s with Ryan White and the AIDS epidemic. He became relevant because he wasn't as relevant. I mean, I think he had that song with George Michael, right? Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me. But he became like a god.
Which, by the way, is you want to talk about false advertising. But
you didn't know George Michael and Wham were gay. You have no sort of gaydar whatsoever.
Well, can we talk? And this is an observation. It's not a criticism. It is certainly not an attack. I have to offer that qualification before I speak. The phrase "living with AIDS." No, you're dying with AIDS. I never met anyone who said, I'm dying with AIDS. No, I'm living with it. It's like saying, I'm living with stage 4 skin cancer. That's great. You look tremendous. But at the same time, we had the phrase full-blown AIDS. And I'd like to know what the difference between AIDS and full-blown AIDS is, because I know the difference between AIDS and HIV. If you have AIDS, you have AIDS. But how bad is it that you have full-blown AIDS?
I think at that point it means you're in the hospital. You know, you can't walk out of the hospital.
He's got full-blown AIDS.
I think it's like AIDS. You could walk into the hospital. Full-blown, you can't get out of bed anymore. You're not.
So he was living with AIDS for about 3 years.
It's like you're at 3. It's like you're at 3 T cells. But I'm
just saying.
But which would be a cool name for a bar in West Hollywood?
There was a diet. My friend pointed this out. Different spelling. There was a diet candy from the 70s called AIDS, and obviously, from that case study of failures in branding, this is one of them.
Well, Corona beer, right?
Right.
It's sort of like sort of like if you have the name Jean Benet, you surely.
Who has the name Jean Benet?
Well, I'm sure there's another person that has the name Jean Benet. Hey, if your name's Alexa, wouldn't you want to change it right now?
I knew a kid named Jack Daniels. I kid you not.
He's probably a cool kid.
Yeah,
that's the name you don't want to change. But if you're named after a little girl that got killed sadly, Jean Benet, you probably want to change your name.
Wait. Killed could mean anything. Car accident. No, murdered in her home, molested. The killer or killers then engaged in necrophilia and then neatly arranged the crime scene so as to eliminate most suspicion. So I'll go with murdered. Murdered and violated.
You're giving the forensic file version of the story, or the.
You're right. There's no one right now sitting around saying, "Let's name our daughter Jean Benet."
Yeah, I mean, or Alexa. If you name your kid Alexa right now,
yeah,
you have to. I wouldn't name my kid after a hurricane name, like so Katrina.
I had a classmate whose brother was named after Hurricane David. 1979.
They could have said so many different names, right? They could have like said so many different people he was named after. Biblical.
I want hurricanes with Ebonics type names, male and female. Like Hurricane Shaniqua continues to ravage the Gulf Coast. Or Hurricane Shabazz Malik, or Malik Shabazz continues its path toward the Carolinas.
By the way, can I just tell you something? I know Ben is squirming, but you know what's funny? What Lewis is saying right now is actually I really do believe a lot of people would find them funny. Like
But,
the
but
weather
for
bureau,
every group that needs to be like the Orthodox, saying like
Right.
Hurricane Yitzhak Solomon.
Right. Hurricane Chaim is bearing down on us.
Right.
You know, hurricanes. Here comes the tornado Shlomo.
Or hurricanes with Polish names that are impossible, like Hurricane Krzyzewski.
How could
It is making its way toward Miami.
I agree with you? Have more fun, right? Just have more fun with it.
Yeah.
Instead of calling it like a Cat 4 hurricane, call it like the Robert Blake hurricane is coming.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the O.J. Simpson tornado is on its way. You know, at that point, you know people are going to get killed.
Or name it after American military battles. Like Hurricane Freedom is on its way to the port of New Orleans.
Like Hurricane Bighorn, or Hurricane Getty.
Hurricane's Last Stand.
Hurricane My Lai continues to track toward the Georgia coast.
But I know, Ben, you're squirming a little bit, but these are, I really do believe the thoughts that people have, because it's like they're really like serious names, like Hurricane Michael. You know, it's like, well, what do you get? My Hurricane Michael. That doesn't scare people.
Hurricane Michael B. Jordan.
Hurricane
The next docuseries on ESPN.
Yeah.
Hurricane Hitler.
Hurricane
Stalin.
Hurricane
Mao.
No, but that gives them too much credit. It's sort of like
so there was a line.
Like it's right. That they should have called like whatever pandemics might happen. That should be called Stalin. You know, Stalin is how do we cure Stalin? How do we cure Mao? You know, but the problem is then you'd have university professors going, well, Stalin wasn't so bad.
Okay. Here's the ultimate lesson in bad branding, which started off as sort of nouveau and chic and trendy. And they had an outpost in Venice, which when I was on that vacation, I went to, but they had another one on Melrose, which I much preferred. If they're still in business, or if they were still in business pre-pandemic, I'd be shocked. This was their name. They can't sue me because I'm just stating a fact. Mao's Kitchen.
What's really funny about that you mentioned that is, I used to, in the desert, I used to go, one of my favorite places when I'd go to Rancho Mirage, there was a restaurant called Bobby Mao, right? And his real name was like Bobby Einstein, you know, or Bobby Sol, you know, and I said to him one night, and it was the best Chinese food in Los Angeles, you know, you'll ever eat. And he moved to Reno or somewhere. And I said to him, and I was thinking to myself, you realize you're naming it after a
mass killer.
Right, like one of the biggest mass murderers of all time. And I don't think people necessarily realize, because our school system is so bad, and I'm not talking about our elementary school system, I'm talking about college and our universities, that they don't teach them how bad Chairman Mao was.
Right, but part of that is because, and I make this distinction between Nazism and communism, Soviet and Chinese, because the documentary evidence, both on film, photographs, and paper, with regard to the Nazis, is the result of U.S. and English troops that liberated concentration camps and the Red Army that liberated the Nazi death camps further east. In the Soviet Union and mainland China, the communists were victorious. When the Soviet Union collapsed, there were no armies that liberated the Gulag. There were no film crews from the West and reporters to document any of these things. Now, what we knew at the time, and we knew a lot, was the result in part of information that had been smuggled out, memoirs, novels, including the works of Solzhenitsyn. In China, until Nixon went there, you're talking about the most populous country in the world that to the West was a mystery.
And boys and girls, that was your history lesson of the day from Lewis.
And now I could do a 180 and just channel my mother when we used to be at Hong Hing, which was packed every Sunday night with Jews. And when we finally were seated and the waiter took our order, she'd scream, "No MSG!"
I'm like, was she allergic?
No, she just thought that the shrimp and lobster sauce was going to be all that much better with no MSG.
It's so funny you mentioned that because producer girlfriend has a real allergy to MSG.
I'm highly, highly allergic to it. In fact, last year I had to have 26 stitches put in my face because I ingested it and passed out.
Yeah.
But what's very interesting about, and I'm sorry everyone listening, my MSG allergy is it actually comes from my grandmother who is Chinese and born in Shanghai.
True story.
Isn't that amazing? Instead of like
So not my Scottish grandmother or my Irish grandfather or any of the like European ancestry, the Asian ancestry is where the MSG allergy comes from.
So instead of blankets laced with smallpox, I just see Christian missionaries in Shanghai dipping Bibles in vats of MSG and then like sort of putting them on clotheslines outside before they would bring them to their soon-to-be converts, your grandmother included, and thus began the genetic predisposition to
The genetic mutation that occurred.
MS,
But going back,
you know what the missionaries did to my people?
But going back to, by the way, just going back to the universities, I have a very smart friend, and I mean, he's a very well-read, very smart guy, that we were talking one night, and he said to me, we were talking about Trotsky, and he said, but Trotsky wasn't as bad. It wasn't that bad. And I said, who are you comparing him to? Idi Amin? Because to Idi Amin, I mean, you know, what was because to Stalin, he wasn't Stalin. He actually thought, Trotsky wasn't that bad. Because
I mean, it's speculative history, but I find it hard to believe that if Trotsky had triumphed against Stalin, not the other way around, that Soviet Russia would have been this beacon of enlightened and tolerant thinking, not only about socialism in general, but dissent overall.
he was also a mass murderer.
Well, I wouldn't go that far with regard to Trotsky, but as I said just before, I find it hard to believe that the outcome would have been much different if he had prevailed instead of Stalin. He's romanticized because of how he died,
Right.
rather than.
I also think it's the name, by the way. The name Trotsky, it just sounds better than Stalin. You know, it goes to the hurricane, the whole hurricane thing. Here comes Trotsky.
Well, ask how many people know who Trotsky is. Even though we have people that will be watching the show, all 8, that will say, "What? Wait a second, we're talking to the man himself right now in some frequency-like connection, even though he's in Zabriskie Point in his trailer."
Oh my God!
Look at him. This is the man. Whatever head wound he suffered from that ice.
I've got a severe headache.
Yeah,
This
this is not how I pictured your studio in Mexico City.
And just for the record, Ben, it's Lewis and I that are Jewish. But if anybody would have seen the
Right, but if anyone's going to throw rocks at somebody and attack him,
throw them at us. But
yeah,
I
they're
had
going
a
to
conversation. We had a text strand going between Ben and myself yesterday that it was the most Jewish conversation of how our lack of sleep, our back problems, the medicines we've tried, trying out my chiropractor because he's cheap. It was but stuff I'm getting to learn about Ben that we share in common.
But here's a much easier test. Each of us has a $50 bill. We walk into a deli, who's gonna get the chub, the sturgeon, and the lox first? Forget about who's holding which number. You know, the appetizing man is going to turn to Ben and say, "What do you want?" Well, I'm waving my ticket, saying, "I'm 23. I'm ahead of this man." They're going to call on Trotsky.
Oh, I have a good question for you, Ben. How many people think you're Jewish, especially because of your last name?
No, not because of his last name, because of how he looks.
He does look Jewish, but your last name in Yiddish, right?
Yes, that's correct. A lot. And I remember in college, a friend of mine on the student newspaper at UC San Diego. First time I met him, he came into the office. He ended up being a columnist for me. He came into the office and he looked at me. He said, "Are you Jewish?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, you should be."
The reverse happened with Lewis.
There's a great scene from Larry Sanders.
Yes.
And it's with Ben Stiller. And Ben Stiller, playing himself, is complaining about something to Gary Shandling's Larry Sanders. And Larry Sanders says, "I wish you could see how Jewish you look right now." Greatest response ever. Wish you could see how Jewish you look right now.
So I don't know where to go from there sometimes, Lewis. Sometimes you go so out. I don't know. But that was a great show, by the way. One of the most underrated comics of all time.
It was the greatest late night show that never was.
I agree with you. And it's funny because that goes into what the thing we want to talk about in the next episode of, like, you know, comedy. People, everybody always says there's like the standard line for people to say, "Oh, the greatest comics are Pryor, George Carlin." And it's like most of those people probably have never heard Carlin or heard Pryor. They just go and say, "Oh, some of the best comedians." But I happen to think Gary Shandling, put him on any list, one of the best comedians of all time.
I think comedians would say that too.
Yeah, I'd put him.
For stand-up? No, I mean,
I don't get Richard Pryor. I mean,
I don't get Richard Pryor either.
I find him a little funny, but I never found Bob Hope funny for that matter. Larry Sanders, Gary Shandling. What's funny about that? He is Larry. Gary Shandling is Larry Sanders. I mean, that's what
everybody on that show was great. I mean, it had its own catchphrase, the equivalent of "Here's Johnny," which was "Hey now."
Hey now, Hank Kingsley.
My favorite with Hank Kingsley, Drew, and Bruno Kirby.
Yeah.
Pretends he doesn't know who Bruno Kirby is. And he says, "I was in The Godfather." "I don't think so." "Which one?" "Two." "See, I only saw the third one, the good one."
It's so funny though, how it's not funny, but it's like we, that's why AFI has all those lists, why those lists can actually sometimes be important, especially for music, especially for movies. But as far as comedians go, I mean, there's nobody, David Brenner was a brilliant comedian.
He, from Philadelphia. The last time I saw David Brenner was on an episode of Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous with Robin Leach.
Julian, I know I said your name not that loud, but there's producer girlfriend. Didn't you have a story with Robin Leach?
I do have a story with Robin Leach. He owned the Food Network before it really became the Food Network.
Looking that up.
Before he made any money.
And what the Food Network used to do, like with the Two Hot Tamales and Jacques Pepin, was they would do traveling road cooking shows. And because I come from a food family, my parents on a Saturday would throw me in the back of the SUV and we would go to cooking shows. So at like 8, 9, 10 through my teens, I would go to cooking shows and learn how to cook with my parents from these great chefs. And one day we were at one of the original Food Network shows and Robin Leach was sitting there. And I had like a small fangirl moment from Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. And I actually went up to him. We had a whole conversation and he said, "It's so nice to see a kid here at a cooking show." And I said, "Well, I love to eat, so I might as well learn how to cook." And he goes, that's why I'm here."
So I found something here that said he did television work for the Food Network.
Okay,
I
television.
think that he was somehow involved with the early creating. I thought that he owned it or had a financial stake, but he was traveling with those shows. I know that.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Yeah.
But on the side note, when she was really young, Lewis, this is very interesting. Her family didn't have a lot of money, so she was a McDonald's taster.
Yeah, I tasted cereals, and then I also lived close to the McDonald's headquarters. So my parents would take me in, and I was an original like pancake tester.
Oak Park.
In Oak Park? No,
Nothing
it's
was
Oak
better
Brook.
than Saturday
Brook.
Oak Park. Saturday mornings, we'd go to the McDonald's on Route 17 in Paramus, New Jersey. The orange juice, which tasted better than any orange juice in the world, despite the fact that they were dumping Five Alive and antifreeze in it. Pancakes, the egg McMuffin, and the hash brown, followed by my mother motioning for the teenager behind the register by saying, Sonny. Sonny. No name, just Sonny. Can we get some ketchup?
But getting back to it, she was an actual taste tester for McDonald's for their pancakes.
Fried apple pie was probably the greatest invention of the last 75 years in culinary history.
What did you taste that like caused you to grow a third eye or something?
The McBagel?
The Mc what?
The McBagel?
Oh, what was the worst thing you remember tasting?
So I remember doing a couple different pancake testings. Like one was actual pancakes.
1 second.
And then another one we did like butters, like margarine and butters. And then I also remember doing one with different syrups.
Oh.
And I'm a Midwest girl. Like I like real butter. So I didn't even try like the margarine, but I also remember doing a cereal taste testing. I can't remember if this was for McDonald's or not. It must not have been, but I didn't like their milk. So they actually went and got me milk that like I actually liked 2%. So they actually went and got me 2%, but it was always, I remember at the time looking around and it being really interesting to see who were the amateur taste testers and who were like more of like the pros, meaning we had done this, like we were on like that circuit of like kids who are trying stuff out. Because after a while you learn not to eat the whole thing. You eat like just enough to be able to take your notes, and then you blow through it. Like they give you an hour and you blow through it in like 20 minutes. You're full, so your parents don't have to feed you, and then you get paid. And they would pay you like, I don't know, I don't remember. I mean, I'm sure my parents like put most of it into a bank account for college.
Did they do a Gary Coleman?
But like, I remember tasting like
where's all my money?
Fruit Loops.
Spent it.
Kind of crazy.
What are you eating?
The best Greek yogurt ever made. Ellenos. Oh, what am I saying? Os. I just went. Oh my God! I just had a sudden like rush of melanin.
But your wife.
Ellenos.
Your wife bought it for you, right? There's no way I could see you buying healthy yogurt in a store.
I get this yogurt all the time, but she's the one that went to the market. The yogurt you're holding is the result of our family's obsession. Enjoy Konstantinos Apostolopoulos.
Anyways, Ben's got a terrible headache. Sorry, Ben.
Yes. Not really, but yes.
Okay. So, but here's the thing. Getting back to it, where are you from originally, Ben?
Here, LA.
Really? You're a native?
Yeah.
So that's why you're a fan. Getting back to that punk scene from the early 80s, a lot of it originated from here.
Yeah, Southern California. That's right.
And did we ever remember the name of Jack Grisham's band? Can you look that up?
Yeah, I should look that up. I should have looked it up,
Producer girlfriend, can you look up Jack Grisham's band? Because it was
I'll see what I can do.
In the punk community.
TSOL.
Yeah. TSL.
TSOL.
TSOL.
Yeah.
And the Pierce Brosnan Diet Coke commercial.
A Pepsi commercial, and
it was a Pierce Brosnan Diet Coke commercial.
You've had plenty of time to Google it yourself, to YouTube it.
I've seen it a million times. My point is to show it to the world.
Memes a day. In all this time, you couldn't have just you're Wikipediaing half your life.
I'm talking about putting it on the screen.
Put up your phone and people could see it.
I don't have internet. I don't have good reception.
You could have just put up your phone and people could have seen it. But getting back to it, because we're running out of time. So here's the thing about music, right? So she keeps on saying the Elton John thing is a regional thing. Now, I'll go to the Chicago region and say, hey, I love Kid Rock, right? Midwest. I love, but one of my favorites of all, better than Springsteen, I think, is Bob Seger.
Oh, yeah, from Detroit.
It's a total. So as to come full circle, Elton John stayed relevant, not with his music, but with social, with being social conscious.
Yeah, and to add to that, because I wanted to make this point earlier, Billy Joel stopped making new music.
Yes.
And that I mean, he stopped. When did he stop? When was his last?
A while ago. But how?
Yeah.
Well, when was his divorces? Do they coincide?
No, they don't. No, they don't. 90.
No.
Great Horatio Sands SNL bit of him driving, singing as Billy Joel, singing his songbook. Cars packed. He's supposed to be drunk, and he's 9:00 on a Saturday, and they're screaming, "Billy, look out!" And then the car crashes. It's great.
And to prove our point, since you're a big fan of Broadway, there's no Benny and the Jets play, but there is a Moving Out play.
Yes.
So Billy got, but I don't just think he just stopped being, Billy Joel, once he stopped making new music, there was no more Billy Joel.
But here's the coolest thing about Billy Joel, which Bruce Springsteen won't do, which nobody else does. He'll go to a college or university. He went to Vanderbilt, for example, to deliver not so much a lecture, but to talk about music. Yeah. And the hands go up and someone says, hey, my friend's sitting in the audience. He's an incredible piano player. He's too humble to ask. So we're asking for him. Would you invite him up to play New York State of Mind? And he comes up and he just blows the doors off it. And then he's on the Today Show and all this other stuff. And for Billy Joel to not only do that, but to hand over the piano to this kid is great.
That's another great point. And we actually agreed on this the other night. It's accessibility. Billy Joel's seems more, at least, way more accessible. He comes off as a little closed, but he feels more accessible.
I have not found a photo of him yet on David Geffen's yacht.
Yeah, but Elton John's the reverse. He pretends to be this guy.
No, that's Bruce Springsteen. That's Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
Who is or has been on David Geffen's yacht.
All three of you hate Bruce Springsteen.
I can't stand
him.
All three of
them. And what I love is that the Reagan campaign
used Born in the USA today. We're Born in the USA without realizing it was an anti-Vietnam song.
But they didn't just appropriate it. They wrote it to a 49 state victory. That everything Bruce Springsteen opposes was embodied in that campaign and in the candidate, who then didn't just win, who won by one of the biggest landslides in political
Which is sort of funny that our current president uses a song that the other side, it's meant for the other side more than it is for his side.
Right.
But, as we're running.
I think you closed strong.
Yeah, no, I think your yogurt was sort of the
highlight,
the peak of
lemon curd, Greek yogurt, so good.
But that's what people are doing right now, right? They're binging, they're eating yogurt, getting Pelotons.
Yeah. I wouldn't call having a yogurt binging. Binging is let me call up Domino's.
On shows, not binging on food.
If you're gonna binge, you pick up the phone, you call Domino's, and my phone goes to the Domino's in 1986, where to guarantee 30 minutes or less, you'd have a 17-year-old manager put his arm around a 16-year-old boy who had a learner's permit and was driving after sundown, who'd say, you don't get this pizza to that house in 30 minutes or less, it comes out of you. So you had kids going 95 miles an hour down residential streets, killing, not murdering like Jean Bonnet, killing kids until Domino's, in this massive class action lawsuit, agreed that we'll make a settlement, and also we can't guarantee 30 minutes or less. We try.
But now they're civic minded and they fix potholes.
Right, but if you haven't had Domino's in like 5 years, and you have just a cheese pizza or a pepperoni pizza from Domino's, it's like having a quarter pounder no cheese from McDonald's for the first time. It is the greatest thing in the world.
Okay, so let's end with on a majority of us, me not included on this one, hate Springsteen. Majority of us, producer girlfriend, hate Elton John, and Lewis wants to be the guy that names hurricanes. That would be a pretty cool job, Lewis. Ben, I think we should try to figure out some sort of campaign.
Get a petition going. Yeah.
A petition going on AM Greatness where he is he becomes the name of
Hurricane Biden is following a no pattern whatsoever. It is striking in arbitrary places where there are no hurricanes.
So like I said, at 3 Esoterics, that's 3 ESOTERICS. Go to AM Greatness. It's one of the greatest sites out there.
Yes, it is.
Ben, and it truly is. Ben is an amazing managing editor. Is it managing editor? Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm glad I finally got
With an office like that, what did you think it is?
It could have been co-editor.
Right. Does that look like a co-editor's office?
No, it does. I don't know whose office that looks like. I mean, it could, it's interesting. It's an
interesting.
On some half-finished subdivision that ran out of money from during the Great Recession, where he's squatting.
Yeah, right. And we'll be up for podcast soon at 3 Esoterics on iTunes. We'll let you know the second it's up, because I know a lot of people, Ben, when they have a harder time watching it, so there is a stripped down audio of this. You don't have to look at our faces, but I think you should look at Lewis's face, and that, the beautiful face that resembles a beautifully aging, not straight John Travolta. And, yeah. And we will actually have a guest on our next show. So stay tuned. Work with us as we're, trying to work with you. We're trying to get, learn, I got to shut up. Lewis, end this on some strong note. Name a hurricane.
Hurricane Fruit of Islam has concentrated on the city of Jerusalem. Meteorologists continue to be perplexed by its patterns, its ferocity, despite assertions by the Academy of Earth Sciences at the Institute of Technology in Riyadh that the hurricane is harmless.
To be continued. Until next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.